After nearly a year of being on the back burner, my FD Rx7 project is finally on the road to completion, and I'm not holding anything back. This thing has snowballed into a full-on dream build. Today we're going to be doing a custom roll bar, one-off headers, and a beautiful titanium exhaust. Really the only question is, where do we want to start? This custom roll bar is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and what we are looking to do is maximize what a bolt-in roll bar can be on this car. There are bolt-in options for the FD Rx7 on the market, but I have two issues with them. Number one, they tie in this corner to the floor pan, which is probably the least structurally sound area in the back end of the car. And it also loses seat travel, which for a larger guy like me is an absolute deal breaker. So what we are looking to do is combine the strength of this location where you see other weld-in options used while still running the full interior, where we'll just have to do a little bit of trimming. The man behind the madness here, Josh, JcHutch on Instagram. The theory is that we have the nuts that will bolt in the roll bar welded in place, and then that plate will weld to the chassis. So we get the strength of a super strong base plate, but we also have the option to remove it. One. That little bit of clearance is going to allow space for the nuts on the backside to sit down into, so that way we can weld all the way around that base plate. And of course, when I say we, I mean Josh. These are the rear bins for the RX-7, little bit of extra storage area, and then the battery is going to go on that side, which is why that is cut out. But you can see we are just outside of that. Josh already has the main hoop bent up with the initial mock-up for the X in it. We're going to go ahead and get it put in, give you a little better visual of what this is going to look like. Yeah, I think that's probably good as far as, like, at least on my side. I'm right in the center of that plate. It's under like the main hatch support, so that's funny. As far as like just beefy spot on the car where the roof is right there, and yeah, I think that's good right there. Tighter. After a tad bit more finagling, I think we have this thing pretty much exactly where we want it. It is beautifully tight up against the headliner, but it's also very tight down against the bins. It's going to be a little bit fun getting them in and out with the cage, but I think we're really only going to have to do it once. Honestly, that's probably where I would drive. Let's see, I might even put one more forward on the bottom. Driver's seat back in the car, and you can see that we have absolutely maximized the amount of seat travel that we have behind this seat. Definitely, that's the best of everything. You can see with the curvature of the back seat, the main part of the headrest isn't what's actually in the way. It is actually the lower section there. But like I said, I think that's as good as I can get with this seating position. This car just only has so much space, so we're gonna keep plowing forward. Yeah, probably right about there. That looks, I think, about right to me.
Okay. Oh, that would definitely help with clearance also, putting it this high.
This is that furthest back point. Right. It's like kind of in like a pocket. Now obviously your tube's going to be a little bit bigger, but it has like a bulge right there, and then this is tapering down and it's tapering down. So I mean, I think I mean, it looks good. Right into there, very nicely.
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
looks real good.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Little landages. How's that looking?
I have a mark in the hatch, but like, where is it supposed to fall? Is it supposed to be in the center of that pipe?
I mean, I think this still looks center as far as overall.
See, it's weird because like from back here, it almost looks like it's off to that side. The outside of this mount for the hatch is literally like right on the inside of that, more or less. And when you hold that, if anything, the outside needs to go up a little bit. Like right there is pretty freaking close to where it should be. Yeah, see, that looks like 19, so.
Up right here also, and up
Like
right
if that whole bar needs to come up, then like, yeah, that would make sense.
like here or something.
Yeah, okay, that looks, the top bar looks a lot better right now.
Pretty good.
From the, yeah, so I'm looking at it like that and I'm like, no, it actually looks pretty right like that. So that says 27.8. 27.5 right
Okay,
there.
yeah, when I fix this, I'll stand some up here and it'll go up more.
There is where it needs to go.
Okay, still right there.
Let me just eyeball it one more time here. Doesn't help I put the camera like right in the way. The other one was like 49.7. That is 50. So three tenths of a degree. So I mean that's gotta be like. So I think we got this thing as good as we possibly can. 0.3 of a degree in the center there. That's not even noticeable to the naked eye. It just took us a little while to get there. I think a plumb bob might have helped us immensely in that scenario, but we worked our way through it. Now we're going to work on the back section of the cage. Because this is removable, we went ahead and picked up a set of these clips. I honestly don't even know what these are called, but it allows us to unbolt the rear section of the cage from the front section. That way we can feed them into the chassis in 2 pieces. This is going to be the first thing that we're going to position on the bars that go from the strut tower up to the top of the hoop there. These pieces Josh had already made. I showed these earlier but didn't touch on them. He just used a rear strut bar that I had laying around to template this, and then this is 083 wall, just larger diameter tubing. So the same thickness as the 1.5-inch tubing that we are using, but just a lot bigger piping, so that way we have access in there. It sits over the strut tower really, really nicely. The only thing is, it looks like the one on your left, both of our lefts, I guess, like almost looks like it might need to be rotated like outwards a little bit. Yes, there we go.
So right here.
Yeah, basically just like that, just right under. That looks right down the middle. I would say one piece bar, 2-piece bar.
Yeah.
This idea has been in my head for probably close to a decade now, and to see it in metal on the car is just absolutely amazing. The final piece of the puzzle is going to be making a lower bar here that's going to connect the 2 sides kind of like a strut bar, and then the mount for this awesome carbon fiber privacy cover is also going to mount onto that. Once that's done, Josh is going to go ahead and get the cage out of the car and get it fully welded up. And at that point, we can kind of, I think, show the proof of the concept here, which will be trimming the interior panels so we can put all the interior panels in with the cage, which will hopefully justify all the effort that we just put in there. I know for a fact here in a short period of time when I go to wire this car, I'm going to be extremely thankful that I can remove this roll bar if I want to. And speaking of wiring, our promotion with Solder Stick is still running. There is a link down in the description below with a discount code. If there's anything wiring related that you're going to be tackling in the near future, Solder Stick is going to be an excellent resource. It is extremely easy to use, provides a secure connection, and all you need are your basic wiring tools and a heat source. I'm sure I'm going to be using plenty of these when I get the FD back to the shop and tackle the wiring as well as on the Viper Swap 240SX. The big takeaway here though, you can save on Solder Stick with the link down in the description below and the promo code. Go ahead, pick some up, add it to your toolbox for whenever you need to make a solid connection. Just like these welds that Josh is about to lay down. Finally, we have all of the pieces of this puzzle put together, and I couldn't be more excited with how this turned out. The seats are back in. That is the most amount of clearance that we are gonna get. I was really set on using these seats because they are very, very tall. The headrest part covers the section between what will be my head and this roll bar. So in the event that anything were to happen and I'm not wearing a helmet, I have something between my head and the bar. Overall, I am very, very happy with how this came out. Now, before I show you what Josh is doing up there, and believe me, we saved the best for last on this fabrication video, I have something at the back end of the car here that I need a little bit of input on. My original plan on this car was to run the OEM R1 wing. I've always loved the way that they look. It only mounts to the hatch and doesn't overhang onto the rear fenders. So it gives the rear end this real just big and kind of wide, tough look when it has the right set of wheels on it. Another option that I've always loved, but I've done several times at this point, is the wingless look. This is, in my opinion, the way that you get the widest look out of the rear end of this car. And then there's this option, the Feed Type 2 adjustable carbon fiber center blade wing, by far the best looking wing ever made for the FD Rx7. I've always wanted one of these, and this is the dream FD build for me, so it seems right that this would be the one that I would choose. This here is the most aggressive setting for max downforce, but with the simple removal of 2 bolts, you can lower this down to that position, a much more subtle look, but still very, very aggressive for this car. My only concern with this wing is the fact that it is wider than the factory wing. It uses the same mounting holes, but it overhangs onto the quarter panels. So from certain angles, it actually makes the car look a little bit more narrow, in my opinion. And without the addition of nice meaty rear wheels, certain cars just don't pull off the look of this wing real well. So I've given you three options, and they're three pretty darn good options if I do say so myself, but I have just one more that I want to throw into the mix. When I purchased my car, it had a R1 wing on it. The only problem is that it was an aftermarket R1 rear wing. It is fiberglass, considerably heavier, and really my main problem is the mount points. They are known to just strip out, fall apart. People have had these things break and fly off on the highway. So I bought the OEM R1 wing, which is my option if I want to run it on the car. But this one presents an interesting opportunity to maybe combine the R1 wing with the more narrow OEM mounting point, but with the more aggressive feed center blade. Now, if you couldn't tell, I have a pretty immense distaste for these cheap replica parts that people throw onto these cars. So I'm going to get a great deal of satisfaction out of cutting this thing up. Hopefully that's centered. Well, I wasn't exactly super precise with my cuts here, but I still think that this gives us the basic idea where you can see it doesn't have the pieces that overhang. If I was to go this route, I think the only way that you could do it would be to use the feed side mounts and chop off the outsides of them and just reshape them. So you can see how much larger the actual blade section is than the OEM wing. I think this is the angle where it's more pronounced as far as the point that I was getting at, that it makes the rear end look a lot wider when you have those more narrow mounts onto the rear end. But one way or another, let me know down in the comments if you have an FD Rx7 or have had one. This might be something that's just very curious since these wings are pretty commonplace, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone chop this up and try and essentially do the combination of two of them. Well, I think that I've kept you waiting long enough, and it's time to show you what might ultimately be the most defining part of this car. I had these Hinson 1 3/4 long tubes on the car, and I was completely content with them. I actually really liked that they were a little bit shorter style of header. The collectors were tucked nicely up into the engine bay. The ground clearance was fantastic on them. I liked them so much that I even went through the trouble of ceramic coating them. And then I saw this video on the Hoonigan Garage, and it completely changed everything.
This is a new kit by Solaritech USA. It's like a 4 and a 2 to 1.
I don't know that I've ever heard a car sound like that, much less a Chevy-based LS. Now, to be completely candid, I don't like the way it sounds, especially in a Corvette. But it sounds so wild and unique that I couldn't get it out of my head for this car. The second that I heard that idle clip, the first thing I thought of is that it sounds like a rotary, which is obviously what came in this car. Now, that might be partially because of the type of material. Titanium tends to kind of have a tinny sound, and well, I was planning on doing a titanium exhaust on this anyway. So really, the only thing that needed to be done is to change the header design. Now, because the transmission is mounted directly to the motor, unlike in a Corvette where the transmission is mounted to the differential on the back of the car, our space constraints are a little bit different. On the C6, this depth right here isn't there because the torque tube is higher. Originally, we were thinking we were going to put the collector somewhere kind of right in this area, but the only thing with that is that the tubes from this side have to come under the trans at that point. So, well, we're basically building the longest headers that maybe have ever existed, and the merge is going to be centered in the car all the way back behind the transmission. The research that I've done, these 8-to-4-to-1 headers are greatly improved as far as exhaust scavenging. It makes more power through the mid-range, and obviously the sound is like nothing I've ever heard before. So if we can pull this off and it sounds completely unique, I think that it will be an awesome feature on this car to make it more unique than it already is. But to be completely honest, it could sound like crap and you guys would all laugh at me, but one way or another, we're doing it. We're gonna find out. From the top side, these don't look too dissimilar from other headers that you might see on this car. One thing, Josh used a 2-piece header flange because this thing has to get put together in so many sections. Over here on this side, there's a little bit more welding that needs to be done, and then just one more of the primaries that needs to run down that we're just waiting on one of the tight radius bends for. Should be here tomorrow so Josh can wrap things up on the top side, but that's not going to slow us down from making some progress on the bottom side.
Let's see how far out it is. Then the lowest point will probably be like right here. Is that still low as shit, or is it fine?
No, that's fine. That's not that bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, like, that fits right up there real nice.
I know.
Like, if that fits like that, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Almost exactly one of those.
Probably a way less radius, or way larger radius, it'll work good. Seems good.
That is the 2 upper pipes in place. You can kind of get the grand picture without jack stands holding everything up. We definitely went in the wrong direction as far as the ground clearance goes, but as far as what this thing could potentially sound like, I am so anxious to see just what noises come out of this thing. Josh is going to go ahead and pick up a couple of the tight radius pieces that we need to complete the runner on this side, and then also the lower pipes are going to come back to the collector on the bottom side, and then from here it's going to be pretty simple. It's just 4-inch titanium all the way back. And before I go here, we're going to get just a quick little glimpse of what it's going to look like. I'm going to have Josh build 2 back half sections of this exhaust, both of them out of titanium. One that is literally just going to be a straight pipe. It's going to be ridiculously loud. I don't think I'm going to be able to handle it except for some of the racing events that I take it to. The other one is going to have a muffler that will be kind of nice, tucked up in there, more parallel to the ground with a nice little kind of angled down tip. But for this one, I think we're just coming straight out. Josh still has plenty of work to do, but I am extremely excited about how this is all coming together. One way or another, this is going to be maybe one of the most unique exhaust system that's ever been on one of these FD Rx7s, swapped or not. So we'll give Josh a little bit of time here to do his thing, and the next time that I see it, I'm going to be picking this thing up, throw it on the trailer so we can get it off the paint. Look at this beautiful titanium. That is 4-inch, no resonators, no mufflers, all the way back, and look at how those headers came out. This thing looks absolutely insane. I absolutely love the way that this came out. Really, my only regret is that we can't start it in order to hear what it sounds like, but soon enough we will be able to tackle that. The room on this is actually pretty fantastic. I feel like these actually fit a lot better than a lot of the long tube options that are out there for this car. There's space around the primaries. You know, it's not a ton of space, but it's enough space. Usually I'm not a fan of the just straight angled pipe, but for this exhaust being the race version, I feel like it really kind of fits the character, and as wild as this thing should sound, I think it is only fitting. We didn't get to see this header finished on this side, but it looks absolutely fantastic. Plenty of room for the spark plug wires. Hopefully we won't have any issues burning boots. This is gonna be the last round of fabrication for the car, and it is wrapping up just in the nick of time because we have an appointment at the paint shop. In the next video, we are gonna get this thing looking very, very different than it looks right now, and then we can move on to the last step of the build, which is gonna be wiring the car up and finally hearing this thing run for the first time. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate the support as always, especially the OG subscribers that were around for the beginning stages of this build. Hopefully you're just as excited as I am to get this thing wrapped up, get it running, get it on the road, and get it to some race events and have some fun with it this fall. So thank you. We will see you in the next video.
Alrighty, and after a cut scene and a bunch of work, you can let go if you need to. Let's get hot.
It's like really freaking hard to tell. Everything changed. Ow. Oh no, camera.
Oh shit.
I absolutely love it. It is so wild. It's not even funny.
Wild.
It is so wild. I love it. We'll take a look real quick. You guys better like that dope closing shot.